the box method, topic 5-1. Let's begin. Let's find the product and factors for each of the following. To do that, look down the column, and we're going to look for the greatest common factor for the x squared term and the 3x term. From our previous unit of study, we know that the greatest common factor would be x. Looking down the column, again, I see greatest common factor of 5x and 15. Both can be divided by 5, and so the greatest common factor is 5. Looking across the row, I have x squared and 5x. They have an x in common. Looking across my terms, 3x and 15, both can be divided by 3, so my greatest common factor is 3. As I look at this problem, my product is what's inside the box, and you may want to write the word inside under the word product to help you remember that product is the inside. It's like the area of a rectangle. And our product will be x squared plus, collect your like terms, that means add these, and so you'll have 8x plus 15. Our factors are found on the top and on the left. So my factor is x plus 5 and x plus 3. If you have a question, pause the video and raise your hand so that your teacher can help you. If you're ready to continue, let's proceed. You have this on your, again, we're going to look down the columns and look across the rows. At this time, press pause so that you can study and determine your own factors, greatest common factor for each column and row. When you're ready, let's continue. When I look down, I see a common factor of x, a common factor of 4. When I look across, I see a common factor of 2x, but here the common factor is 1. So my product, remember, is the inside part of the box, so I have 2x squared plus 9x plus 4. My factors are on top, which should be x plus 4 and 2x plus 1. If you have questions, pause, raise your hand so that your teacher can help you. Otherwise, let's continue. Again, pause the video, look at each column and each row to determine the greatest common factor. When you're ready to proceed, press start to continue the video. Hopefully you looked down and you discovered that your common factor is 2x, your common factor is 5, your common factor is 2x, your common factor is 1. 2 and 5 cannot be divided by anything but 1. So my product is 4x squared plus 12x plus 5. My factor is 2x plus 5 and 2x plus 1. Now you'll notice they have a question for you at the bottom of the page. It says, do you notice anything about the cross products in all these boxes? And what they're asking us to look at, and what I'm going to ask you to focus on at this time, is if you'll look at product, of course, means multiply. What's 2 times 10? So that would give me 20x squared. If I look this way, when I multiply, I also get 20x squared. If we go back and look at each of our products, here I will have 8x squared. Here I will also have 8x squared. If I go back one more problem, notice We have 15x squared and 15x squared. This information is going to be very important in tomorrow's lesson, but what they want you to notice is they are the same, or they are equal, and you can use the equal sign as a shortcut abbreviation. When you're ready to proceed, turn your paper over, and let's continue with your notes that are on the back of your page. You'll notice in our next problem, we have some negatives. And when you have to factor negatives, you do it very much the same as we find the greatest common factor. So looking down, I see an x. Looking down, 6 and 54 can both be divided by 6. Because there's a negative here, I place a negative in my factor. Greatest common factor here is x. Here, they both can be divided by 9. Because I have a negative here, it becomes a negative. You're going to see a different situation with negatives, but when you have negatives on your diagonals, the negative comes out closest to where it's at. Product, be careful, x squared. Watch your sign, negative 15x plus 54. Your factor then is x minus 6 and x minus 9. And if you'll stop and think for just a moment, we have a positive times a negative gives me a negative. A negative times a positive yields a negative. But my negative times my negative yields my positive corner. My cross products are still the same. Negative times negative is a 54x squared. This cross product is also a positive 54x squared. So we're still maintaining equality in our cross products. If you have a question, pause and raise your hand. Your teacher will assist you. Otherwise, let's continue. Now this one, you'll notice, the negatives are both in the same row. And I'm going to start here for greatest common factor just to give you a clue. Then I'm going to ask you to figure the rest out on your own for a moment. Since these are both negatives, they have a common factor of negative 7. Now I'm going to ask you to pause and you figure out your own column greatest common factor and this row, and then we'll continue together. All right, hopefully you figured out that this column has a common factor that's just x. Common factor here is just 5. Common factor across this row will be 2x. And if you check your factors, 2x times x is indeed 2x squared. 2x times 5 is indeed 10x. My product is 2x squared. Be careful collecting your like terms. You have positive 3x and then a negative 35. Your factor on top is x plus 5. Watch your signs carefully. And 2x minus 7. If you have a question, raise your hand. Otherwise, let's continue. Now you'll notice the box is empty, but a couple of things you should already know. The x squared term always goes in the top left corner. The constant term, the number by itself, always goes in the bottom right. These two, it doesn't matter where you place them. For discussion purposes, I'm going to put the 8x in the top right and the negative 6x in the bottom left. Again, now you work your problem just as you've been doing. So find your greatest common factors. Let's continue. So you have a common factor of x, common factor of 8, common factor of x. And if you stop and check, x times x is x squared. X times 8 is 8x. Both have a negative, so their common factor is negative 6. My product should be x squared plus 2x minus 48. My factor will be x plus 8 and x minus 6. If you have questions, pause the video, raise your hand to get assistance. Otherwise, let's continue. All right, just to review the steps that you need to do in the factoring process. You'll need to put the numbers or the terms in the correct position in each box. Remember, the x squared term always goes in the top left. The constant number term goes in the bottom right. The x terms are on your diagonal, and they're interchangeable. It doesn't matter which one goes where. Find your product and determine the factors. So let's take a look at what we've got. We have an x term, so I'm going to place it 21x right here. This is my constant term, so I'm going to place my 70. I have a 3x squared, so that's going to go in the top left, and my minus 10x. These are some tough numbers. I'll give you a moment to check and find the greatest common factor. Remember, there's a feature on your graphing calculator to find the greatest common factor for two numbers. I'll give you a hint. Since the negatives are on the diagonal, this will be a negative number, and this will need to be a negative number. And now I'll let you continue on your own. When you're ready, continue. Hopefully you were able to discover that this is going to be x. This is negative 7. This will then have to be 3x. Double check it. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 7 gives me my negative 21. And my greatest common factor here is 10. Our product, 3x squared minus 31x plus 70. Our factors are x minus 7 and 3x minus 10. If you have questions, raise your hand. Otherwise, you are now ready to continue work. You are going to complete worksheet online. And the worksheet you're going to be working on is worksheet 5-1. Good luck.